Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about two soundtracks from the world of games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is Joe DeVader.
And I'm Peter Spezia. We're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games they come from without getting too bogged down in music theory. Up first for our two games this week is 2008's Persona 4. The journey of an investigation team of high schoolers who solve a fog-filled murder mystery by going into the world that's inside of a television.
Following that is a game where prom is in 3 weeks and you don't have a date! Oh, and also you're a monster, but that's okay because so is everybody else. 2018's Monster Prom.
We're almost there, everyone who is in the class of 2020. It's graduation week, so we wanted to talk about some school-themed games. But also it's episode 69. Hey! Nice. Joe, how are you doing? What you playing?
I have actually recently been playing Murder My Numbers.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I get a little bit mentally exhausted with Picross after a little bit, but hey, it's cool. On case 3, enjoying it. Great soundtrack.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one we're going to talk about at the end of the year in our best of 2020. Yeah, it's Picross meets Ace Attorney. If that sounds good to you, definitely go check that out. I am playing more Persona 5 Royal. I am about 86-ish hours in. I just hit January. So the new things are finally starting as far as story developments go. It's interesting. I'm real curious, but should be fun. I'm having a great time with it. Still got to get to Final Fantasy VII Remake after, though. That's for sure.
Heavily suggest Final Fantasy VII Remake next. 100%. Great game.
Absolutely. Let's catch up with the different composer follow-up headlines that have happened in the past week or so. All the composers we've talked about on this show so far, they're still doing great work. And we'd like to catch up with their involvements here in the game industry. Jesper Kyd, we talked about him with Assassin's Creed 2, and he's been away from the Assassin's Creed franchise for a while when it comes to composing, but he's coming back for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, alongside Sarah Schachner, who worked last on Assassin's Creed Origins, and also contributions of original songs by Einar Selvik. He's part of the Norwegian group Wardruna, and Wardruna, they provided much of the background music for the 2013 TV series Vikings. So it sounds like the soundtrack for that game is in good hands.
I haven't watched Vikings, but I mean, Viking game, Viking show, probably a good match. Meanwhile, Lena Raine, who we have talked about in the past for her work on Celeste, has released a visual novel style game called Escape, that's ESC, as in what it says on the escape key. It is available on PC now, mainly through Steam. I believe you can also get it on itch. It's $5 on Steam and pay what you want on itch.io. And it features a dynamic soundtrack by her, as well as additional music by Krista Lee and sound design by Too Mellow.
Tetris Effect is a game that, when it comes to new VR platforms, I think it's worth mentioning. I think it's finally covered the VR platform range now, though, where the game is now available for Oculus Quest. And of course, this is Nobuo Muto's music that we've talked about before on the show. Fantastic game. Definitely go check it out if you have not already.
Also, there is a Twitter account called DJ Shack Fan Account. That's DJ Shack Fan Ack, which is awesome. And they have been taking a video of Shaquille O'Neal doing a DJ routine and putting video game music on top of it. And they are all wonderful. They're all great.
Yeah, like speeding up the footage, really good editing. So Shaq is he's pumping in time with the music. Right now they've got Supporting Me, the Biohazard theme from Sonic Adventure 2 on there, and boom, just pumping away. No, it's great. Definitely check it out if you're a fan of all sorts of game music. Highly recommended. And finally, we mentioned in the Persona 5 episode that Lupin III, the First, is this Japanese animated movie that has this really cool style to it. Well, it's coming westward with North American distribution rights picked up by G-Kids Films. They last did the distribution for Promare, the anime film there. And of course, I mentioned it because of Lin Inaizumi doing work for Persona 5 and then doing a song in this Lupin the Third movie. Like, perfect. Perfect right there. And I think also perfect to then segue into talking about our first game. And this is Shin Megami Tensei Persona 4. Yeah, that's right, because with Persona 3 and Persona 4, these are still considered a spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei series. It has not been too long since we talked about a Persona game with Persona 5, as we...
Less than a month?
Yeah, as we referenced in that episode, but good to talk about this one. Actually, you were going to talk about this one first for a while, and then things happened with your game that were like, we're going to shuffle things around here, so...
Yeah, my original plan was to talk about Monster Prom as the lead-in to October, because once again this year in October, I'm going to do spooky games as a theme pretty much the whole time. And then something got announced, and it made more sense to talk about it this week.
I was going to talk about Fire Emblem Three Houses. Don't worry. The school and dating theme still would have been kept. But one, I've not played that yet. Too busy with a big, meaty RPG like Persona 5 Royal. But yeah, it just so happened that this worked out for the best. So allow me to talk about one of my favorite games of all time, Persona 4, which released in Japan on July 10th, 2008 for PlayStation 2. North America got the game on December 9th, 2008, while Australia and Europe had to wait until March 12th and 13th, 2009, respectively. There is an enhanced director's cut of the game, Persona 4 Golden, which was released as Persona 4 The Golden in Japan on June 14th, 2012 for PlayStation Vita. North America got the game as Persona 4 Golden on November 20th, 2012, and Australia and Europe on February 21st and 22nd, 2013. This is one of PlayStation Vita's best games, period, bar none, and it sadly remained on the platform. Yet the original Persona 4 made it to PlayStation 3 as a PS2 classic on April 8th, 2014. Let me reiterate, this game released in 2008 in the summer on PlayStation 2. PlayStation 3 was almost 2 years old by this point. So it's a very late PS2 game. Let's just keep that in the back of our heads when we start talking about some of the reviews and critiques of it. The game is developed by Atlus. It's published by Atlus in Japan and North America, but the European version got published by Square Enix for its original PS2 game, and then NIS America for Persona 4 Golden in Europe.
That keeps happening. That's the second time that's happened. I feel like I don't remember what the other game was, but that's the second time that has happened.
That is really weird. Europe. I don't know what's so different about publishing. Is it all the different languages? I don't know why it's got to be outsourced. Anyway, that's certainly interesting. Persona 4 is a cross between a JRPG, Japanese role-playing game, and a daily life simulator. Now, we've discussed Persona 3 and Persona 5 on the show already, but to summarize it quickly, you go through each in-game calendar day as a high school student. You have to manage your social stats, you need to study, you need to make friends, and then when required, you traverse randomly generated dungeon levels with turn-based combat. And you level up and you gain experience points and all that good stuff along the way. Your party members will each kind of play a role with their attack types and kind of what they specialize in, but as the protagonist, you can change the persona that you possess within yourself. So you hold on to these several creatures within you based on mythological figures or religious figures, and they each have different abilities. So your pool of abilities that you can choose from is vast, whereas your party members are very set in what they can do. The story of Persona 4 involves the outskirts of Mount Fuji, along its floodplains, lies this little fictional rural Japanese town of Inaba. And in Inaba, there are these unexplained murders that have taken place, where bodies are found dangling from television antennas, and their cause of death is unknown. At the same time, a rumor has begun to spread about watching a switched-off television set on rainy midnights, and that will reveal a person's soulmate. This is where you, the protagonist, come into play, and you've moved from the big city to attend high school in Inaba for 1 year, while living with your uncle Ryotaro Dojima and his daughter Nanako. Now, Dojima is investigating these murders as his job as a detective, so when you actually start unraveling the mystery of what's going on in Inaba with your friends from school, it comes as a big surprise when you can enter televisions through their screens and discover a secret world inside of the TV. But beware, the onset of heavy fog in Inaba means another victim is about to be targeted. What is the secret of the TV world, also known as the Midnight Channel? Who is the mastermind behind these serial killings? And can the investigation team discover the truth? Joe, here's where I'll ask you, what are our experiences with Persona 4?
So shortly after finishing Persona 3 for the first time, I was like, I'm going to give myself some time before I play Persona 4. And then within a week, I'd gone out and found a used copy of the game. And then I played the whole thing in a week and a half. Because I was depressed and in college, and none of that's important. But I played the whole thing in a week and a half. Loved it. And then I think years later, I decided I wanted to replay it, but going back to the original version, I don't like the original version. And I wanted to play Golden because I knew that the quality of life features in Golden would fix my issues with the original game. And I ended up buying a PS TV just for Golden. It is the only Vita game that I own. I bought a PS TV just to play it. It is currently sitting hooked up to my TV out in the living room. And I love Golden. I think it is a fantastic game. I love every change they made, basically, even though I don't love every change they made. I could take or leave Marie, but, it's a good game. It's got a fantastic setting. I love the cast. It's definitely, I think 3 and 5 rank a little bit higher for me, but all 3 of those games, that whole trifecta is definitely all of them are in my top 20 games for sure.
Yeah, Persona 4 Golden is my favorite of the series. And I think before Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, that was my favorite game of all time. Some days I go back and forth and think, what actually is, but I hold this game in deep regard and esteem. I think you're absolutely right. The original is a little rough, but that was also how I experienced it. Also, shortly after finishing Persona 3. For me, I actually bought a Vita. That was one of those. But yeah, Golden's the standout title on that whole system, I think. Wow. It's a tremendous game. And when we talk about, as we've mentioned before on previous Persona episodes, where does it stand for you? I love all 3. I think 5 is the best game from actually playing the game. They've fixed so much. They've learned so much about refining that series. But I think the cast and the story in 4 is way better. So we'll talk about that a little bit as we kind of delve into a little bit more behind what makes this game tick on a development front. So Persona 4's development team consisted of rehires from Persona 3, because they picked up right after Persona 3 and brought the team back to do 4. But they also brought in fans of Persona 3 to try to improve and refine the Persona experience. One of their biggest goals was to try to make sure that the player had a constant objective throughout the game, throughout the narrative, and that is solving this murder mystery. something that wasn't really apparent in 3 if you look back on it. Like, where is this game going? Where you have the murder mystery, where it's like we're kind of chipping away at the mystery, kind of bringing new people into the fold. So because of the murder mystery inspiration, they were greatly inspired by mystery novelists such as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Agatha Christie, and Seiichi Yokomizo. So coming off of Persona 3 and its city setting of Tatsumi Port Island and Gekkoukan High School, the team wanted to go a little more rural for the kind of eeriness of the murder mystery. And so when they were kind of brainstorming amongst the development team, they realized that the members of the dev team had different ideas of what made up a rural Japanese town, which is so interesting, right? It's like everyone had their different thoughts. They did some location scouting, but ultimately Inaba was created as a nowhere place, like a run-of-the-mill town, keeping it super bland and simple. Keeping the town simple not only kept the development costs down, still on PlayStation 2 after all, but also allowed the team to focus on other parts of the game. You could also think, though, that its quaintness really allowed the players to easily navigate Inaba instead of being overwhelmed by like a large open world, which was certainly popular at the time. I mean, 2008, Grand Theft Auto 4. Like, next generation, sure, big step up, but keeping things nice and simple with Inaba.
Even then, you can look at Tatsumi Port Island, and that place is a nightmare. I still get lost in that city. And I, have played that game at least 4 times now, and I still get lost at Tatsumi Port Island all the time.
And you even think in Persona 5, there's something to be said about recreating Tokyo and making it so realistic that Japanese players really resonate with it. But God, navigating the subway is a nightmare, so you're just using fast travel all the time in that game. Let's be honest. At least that's how I play it. But Inaba is kept so simple and quaint that I think it also really allows the characters and their stories to stand out against a really non-specific backdrop. The developers really wanted to make the characters seem normal and modern, though, giving them maybe even some city traits, like maybe some headphones or they're riding a bicycle. They didn't want to write them as too rural, though. One of the editors for localization said, quote, "They're not really hicks." So, yeah, that may have taken on a different setting if they were more country boys and girls, let's say. One of Persona 4's big prevailing narrative themes, outside of the whole overarching, it's the murder mystery sort of thing, but it's all about the shadow self and coming to terms with what we really think and who we really are, specifically the parts of ourselves that we hide from the world. And so I think this in particular makes the cast of Persona 4 stand out just a whole lot. Not only that, but makes them more fascinating characters with flaws to begin with. As I go back and play Persona 5 here for Royal, it is interesting. It's like, oh yeah, they have certain personality things, but their main conflict is that society and bad adults keeping them down. I'm going to show you my rebellious will, and that's how I gain my persona power. No, in Persona 4, each of our party members are battling a flaw within themselves, have to battle their shadow self, accept their true self, and become stronger for it. I think it just makes them infinitely more interesting as characters. And those characters of the investigation team, I think, are also helped by, generally they have I would say colors that they're associated with them. And it kind of helps the mental association. I don't know what you think about this, Joe, but I think of each character having these colors associated with them.
I could sort of see that. That would certainly make the rainbow aesthetic and golden make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So you have the protagonist, who you get to name. He's a very blank slate, but he's very gray, and in different media, he was eventually called Yu Narukami. which is the name that's really been accepted. He also has the name of Soji Seta in other Persona 4 media, like I think the manga, that's his name there. It's interesting. But Yu Narukami. You also have Yosuke Hanamura, who I associate with Orange. He's a city kid who's really not adjusting well to rural life after his parents have moved to Inaba to start up a branch of the Junes superstores. And so the big store is running the mom and pop shops out of competition. You have Chie Satonaka, who I associate with Green. She's an extroverted tomboy who loves kung fu, but she has an inferiority complex when it comes to what is generally seen in Japanese culture as traditionally feminine. To contrast that, you have Yukiko Amagi, who is associated with Red, I would say. She's a reserved introvert who feels forced to inherit her family's hot spring hotel business, so she feels trapped by that. There's Kanji Tatsumi, who some people I think may associate with yellow. I sometimes think purple, so it's kind of a balance there. He's a tough, vulgar delinquent who has a sensitive side, and he loves sewing and knitting. Rise Kujikawa is generally associated with pink, I would say. She's a popular idol who has returned to her hometown of Inaba for a hiatus because she is tired of show business and the personality that she has to put on. There's Naoto Shirogane, who I would associate with Navy, a detective prince who wants to be seen as an adult in dealing with the difficulties of a police department. And there's Teddy, who I would say is like blue, light blue. He's a stuffed anthropomorphic bear from the TV world who is dealing with struggles of what he is and where he came from. I think there's a lot to love with the characters from 3 and 5, but these characters I think just mean so much to me and are so identifiable and recognizable.
I think it is overall the strongest cast, because I love the characters of 3, but they're not as fleshed out. Because 3, you mentioned like 5 everybody has a central sort of theme that they're working towards. 3 sort of has that too, which is they're all grappling with the fact that them and everybody around them is going to die one day. And I like that theming a little bit better personally, but I think as characters and the amount that you get to know them and watch them develop, 4 is definitely king in that regard.
And I think this game also really shines because of its localization. It's a masterclass. And we've talked about games with really bad localization before.
Final Fantasy VII.
But I think Persona 4 is one where it stands out. And it's all thanks to Atlas USA's team who came over from Persona 3 and just carried right over. Primarily handled by Yu Namba and Nick Maragos. They also had 4 translators and 2 further editors. So you had some names changed. Teddy is known as Kuma, the Japanese name for bear, in the Japanese version. Reset is known as Risetchi in the Japanese version. Social links are known as community. And Yunamba even explained that like community is a different word. It means like different things in English than what it was being used in Japanese as. And then there's Kai Rail, which got changed into the punny go home item. They included honorifics like San and Kun. They referred to characters by their first names, which would be a very English American thing to do, as opposed to referring to their family surnames. And they also adjusted things when Japanese references wouldn't really translate well. Like the fictional detective Kosuke Kindaichi. Must be, I think it's like a series of novels. It doesn't really translate to English. Yu Namba also wanted Yuri Lowenthal to have a much larger part in Persona 4. So his role as Yosuke ended up featuring 1,000 more lines of dialogue than the other major characters. I just saw that. I'm like, oh, that's right. Yosuke does talk a lot in this game. I just haven't really ever thought of that. There also have been voice actor changes between the original game and Golden. Most notably to some fan disdain is Chie being changed from Tracy Rooney to Aaron Fitzgerald.
I think it's a better change, I'll be real. I personally prefer the new Chie voice.
So do I, but some people are really salty about it. And then Teddy is changed from Dan Wittenberg to Sam Riegel. And Sam Riegel, you also may know as the current voice of Phoenix Wright. It's such a negligible difference. Sam did a really, really great job there. But characters also changed voices later after Golden. Once Persona Q and Persona Arena Ultimax started to roll around, some of these later Persona 4 spinoffs. For example, Kanji changed his voice from Troy Baker. Yep, before he became Booker DeWitt and Joel from The Last of Us. Kanji Tatsumi was the big Troy Baker role. Eventually, Matt Mercer picked up the role of Kanji. And apparently, Naoto's original voice actress was uncredited in the original Persona 4. Different sites seem to believe it is Anna Graves, but this was later changed to Valerie Aram, starting with Persona Q and Arena Ultimax.
A main character went uncredited.
Yeah.
There's got to be a story behind that.
I feel like there's got to be. In Persona 4 Golden, this enhanced director's cut, there's a whole bunch of additions. You have this new character named Marie. You have new social links for her and Dojima's detective assistant, Toru Adachi. New online features, new difficulty levels, an expanded calendar with new events. You get to explore Inaba at night with new locations. There are new personas, much more. Basically, it was what Persona 5 Royal recently was for Persona 5. It's like the definitive way to play it. It's tough to go back to the original when you know these things about how it can be. The game was reviewed very highly, with a Metacritic score of 90 for the original PS2 game and a 93 for Golden on Vita. Jeff Gersman from Giant Bomb described it as, quote, one of the best times I've had with video games, whether I was playing by myself or watching someone else play it. And that makes sense with Giant Bomb's big Persona 4 series. The ability to control party members was a huge improvement over the original Persona 3.
What, you didn't want your characters to do Marin Karen over and over and over again?
Looking at you, Mitsuru. Many reviewers, though, did note how similar Persona 4 was to Persona 3. Though others did note Persona 4 as, quote, a near flawless example of the perfect balance between falling back on what works and pushing the genre forward. It is a stylish game, but it's also held back in a time where players had already moved on to the next generation, to the Xbox 360 and PS3 with these HD graphics. So these dated PS2 graphics may not have held up as well critically at the time. Though Persona 4 was also noted at the time for how it handled LGBT issues, especially for being a Japanese game. And that's why it's so disappointing when this is not handled well in not only Catherine, but eventually Persona 5. In Japan, the original game sold 190,000 copies within a week of its release, while in North America, Persona 4 was the highest-selling PS2 game on Amazon for 2 consecutive weeks. Do keep in mind that December 2008 is more than 2 years after the PS3 launched. So, may not be saying much, but it was Golden that really took off, I think, on Vita. Sold 700,000 copies, Persona 4 Golden, worldwide as of December 2013. I think because of Persona 4's timing so late in PS2's life cycle, it was a game that wasn't really recognized too much as far as awards go at the time, with however gaming awards were handled in the West. But it was, definitely a cult hit at the time. In Japan, on the other hand, it won the, quote, PlayStation 2 Game Prize in the Famitsu Awards for 2008, which was voted on by readers. It was also one of the recipients of the Games of the Year Award of Excellence in the Japan Game Awards 2009. In 2013, Games Radar ranked it the 5th best video game stories ever. And then in 2019, something called Video Game Canon ranked Persona 4 as the 127th best game of all time on a, quote, statistical meta-analysis of 53 best video games of all time lists. In case you're curious, the top 3 on that list: Tetris, Half-Life 2, Resident Evil 4. It's an interesting list. If something like that interests you, go check it out. But Persona 4 really made the Persona series just very popular in Japan, as I think would be evidenced by the amount of spin-off titles that the game had, with characters and plots being brought forward. In addition to the Golden Director's Cut, there were fighting games with Arena and its sequel, Arena Ultimax, Etrian Odyssey, dungeon crawling crossover games with other Persona characters. We've talked about Persona Q, but there was also Persona Q2, a rhythm dancing game in Dancing All Night, and an anime that retold the events of the story with Persona 4, the animation. Beyond that, there's merchandise, a manga, a light novel, a live stage show, you name it. There's also the start of live concerts based on Persona music. I think this is really when the series blossomed, and this is where you see, after a while, the Shin Megami Tensei name was dropped, and then you just had the Persona series based on this game.
And then Persona 5 came out, and now it is essentially a mainstream franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Shoji Meguro, talked about him many times on this show, primarily does the music for this game. But like we talked about Lin Inaizumi as the vocalist for Persona 5, the vocalist for Persona 4 is Shihoko Hirata. Shihoko Hirata, born June 18th, with a year unknown, in Kanagawa Prefecture in Japan. If you really want to know, she's blood type B, according to her own website. She also goes under the nickname Shihoko sometimes, with H-O-C-O. She learned classical piano at 6 years old, and then experienced soul music at 12 years old and was fascinated by the 70s and 90s with those genres of music, and that led her to start singing. She started learning Italian songs for some reason at age 16. Then when college rolled around, she took music more seriously. She studied gospel music in 2002 and then voice training in 2003. And then Persona 4 happened. And wow, she is the vocalist for all things Persona 4 related. And that's really been her biggest accomplishment, I would say, in her career. She eventually released solo albums titled The Stories of a Day in 2015 and 708 in 2016. You can follow her on Twitter at Shihoko Hirata. But really, when it comes to her discography, I mean, yeah, all those Persona 4 related works, the original game, Golden, Arena, Arena Ultimax, Q, Q2, Dancing All Night, Animation, Reincarnation. Oh, we'll talk about what that is very shortly. She also sang the OP, the opening song, in Destiny Child, which is a mobile game, and not the group that Beyonce was once a part of. But like that's really been her big thing, and she's really talented. So I think it's a shame that she somehow hasn't received more work, and it's tough to find more research on her, to be honest. But like, she's the Persona 4 vocalist. Like that's her thing. Because Persona 4's soundtrack, the music was composed by Shoji Meguro, also Atsushi Kitajo and Ryota Kozuka. Ryota Kozuka, the only track he contributed was the Junes theme. That's it. That's his song, the catchy little everyday's great at your Junes jingle for the big superstore in the game. Atsushi Kitajo contributed more tracks to Persona 4 Golden. He had some in the original Persona 4, but only really a handful. I will say, though, all of the critical tracks and cutting room floor that we'll get to, all composed by Shoji Meguro, is still his baby. And Shihoko Hirata was selected as the vocalist because Meguro felt she was able to meet the range of emotion needed for the soundtrack. Now, on October 26th, 2011, Nevermore, Reincarnation, Persona 4, was released in Japan as a music album that contained remixes and new arrangements of Persona 4 music by Shoji Meguro. This reached the top of both the Oricon Weekly Album charts and Billboard's Japan Top Albums chart for the week of its release, selling nearly 27,000 copies. And boy, we both cannot recommend Reincarnation enough, especially if you already like Persona 4 music. But if you find the upcoming songs to be entertaining to you, we're going to highly recommend that Reincarnation album for you.
It's absolutely fantastic. I love it.
So good. Let's get into the 5 critical tracks to talk about Persona 4. We got to start with the opening of the original game, Pursuing My True Self.
We are living our lives, but with so much information. Come on, let go of the remote. Don't you know you let it on a junk for them? Try to flip the road, double cooking on a go, but I know use. Hang, I've been cuisine. Loading.
So yeah, that opening animation plays, and you got this catchy little jingle. Lyrics by Unamba, with the localization helping kind of craft that message, but also Rio RCA. Okay, that's how it's credited on the soundtrack. I'm not going to complain. These are songs specifically Pursuing My True Self and the main battle theme of the game. They're composed to really reflect like the inner conflicts and thoughts of the game's main characters. This one in particular, it really just sets an understanding of those conflicts. I do like Persona 4 Golden's opening song, Shadow World, but I think there's just something so perfect about the lyrical themes here with Pursuing My True Self. And then you get this musical riff of like, it's that little thing that just gets you like, oh, I'm immediately in Persona 4. Like, I'm so there. And then you also get Shihoko Hirata not only singing, but rapping. And she does a great job because of these 3 Persona vocalists from 3, 4, and 5. I think Hirata rapping is something that's really unique to Persona 4. And you get loading, quickly reaching maximum capacity. Want it. It's like, there's such a cool little flow that, like, yeah, I do miss Lotus Juice, but I'll take a vocalist who can sing and flow.
Yeah, I agree that I think this song, personally, I like Shadow World as well. I like Shadow World a lot. But I think both in terms of the song and the animation that goes along with it, I think really fits the tone of Persona 4 a lot better than Shadow World, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow World is a very happy tune. The animations are all like flashy and colorful and happy.
It has harmonica in it.
Yeah, but then you look at Pursuing My True Self and it's mysterious. Something about it feels kind of sinister. There's something hiding under the surface. And I that to me matches the overall tone of Persona 4 better than Shadow World ever would. And yeah, Shihoko Hirata absolutely kills it with the rapping here. This is such a good song. I love it.
I am sad though that the clip couldn't include "We are trapped in a maze of relationships." Like, it's so good. I think the hardest one to decide between was number 2 on the cutting room floor. We went with Time to Make History.
I know it's natural to say, but there ain't no other way. So step on up to the place. Need to face what can spread on into the light of us. Step on up to the place. 'Cause this ain't no game. It's time to make history, yeah.
And I say we because Joe had a critical 5 laid out for when it was planned that he was going to do Persona 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm not touching it. It's perfect. Let's be honest. So, Time to Make History is the battle track in Persona 4 Golden. It is not the player advantage song in Persona 4 Golden, whereas the new song in Persona 5 Royal is when you do have that ambush. But no. Persona 4 Golden, when you have player advantage, not Time to Make History, it is Reach Out to the Truth there. Because the real struggle is, do you pick Time to Make History or Reach Out to the Truth? And multiple times on this show, we have cited Reach Out to the Truth as being a very iconic song to Persona 4, especially thematically, but it's also one of those battle songs that we get tired of. And so I think Time to Make History is so much better. You do get more of Hirata rapping in the verses, always great. But yeah, there's something to be said about like what's more iconic versus what's just the straight up better song.
I have nothing against Reach Out to the Truth. I actually think it's a great song, but it's just the over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
And I would much rather get that bass lick going. This bass lick rules.
Also, in dancing, Akira Yamaoka does the remix of Time to Make History, and therefore it wins automatically.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Well, the battle songs are really all about the strength of the characters to really work through their internal struggles, and it really shows. But man, Time to Make History, step on up to the plate. Like it's so good. I love it so much. Also, a great song if you want to find like the misheard lyrics sort of videos on YouTube. Choice for Time to Make History. I love it so much. But yeah, I think that's the hardest decision we really had to make for this list.
Mm-hmm. And there were also some decisions about like, I really like this song, but gotta leave it off. But that just comes with the territory. That one's just expected.
It is a tough soundtrack to do that for, certainly. Number 3 on the Critical 5, we got to talk about Signs of Love. This is the theme of the Dojima residence. You're home, big bro. Lyrics for this song by Reiko Tanaka. It's a song that I hear it, and I think like the song quality and its groove, it's just so good that you forget that this game is on PlayStation 2. It's like, oh yeah, thank goodness that this was finally the time where like you could get streaming music files of like whatever quality. It's so good, and I feel like the quality of this soundtrack really stands out. Persona 3 as well, but compared to most PlayStation 2 games, yeah, you'll get epic orchestral ones like Shadow of the Colossus, but compared to most PS2 soundtracks, Persona 4 kills it. It's so good, and big frustration, bro.
I adore this song. This is my favorite song in the game. 100%. This song always makes me feel like really relaxed. It used to be the song that ended one of my older podcasts because I loved it so much. And I don't know, something about just the way it feels. While I really, really like Iwatodai Station, which is the music for the dorms in 3 a lot, this song just feels like it's the end of a long day. It's time to go up to your room and relax.
Absolutely. And might we mention, the reincarnation version of this song is just incredible with big band swing jazz. So if you like this, definitely give yourself a chance to listen to that.
Yeah, it takes the original tone of the original song and says, but what if we did the exact opposite? And what if somehow that still worked really well? It's also my favorite song on that album.
Yeah, definitely. Number 4 on the Critical 5. This is I'll Face Myself, Battle. I mean, let's be honest, this had to be here. This is the best battle song, I think. Not only just it's that Meguro guitar, like it's such a, Persona 4, really important boss battle theme. But not only that, like, it's narratively so important. You're taking on the shadow of what will be one of your party members after they've refused to accept it as themselves. And then eventually, the battle version here is followed by this same leitmotif. It's just gentler, a little more piano in there as the party member comes to accept this part of them. This is another one where the version of this song on that Reincarnation album is so good, especially when it became an endgame boss battle song in Golden. I'll tell you, playing that and discovering that was so hype to discover. I love that. This is such a good song. There's no way it could not be here on the Critical 5.
Yeah, and it's probably among the best JRPG boss battle themes in general. Granted, I'm not going to even say like top 5 because that's some competition. PS2, Woof. Best PS2 even is some major competition because you got Final Fantasy games on there, man. You got all sorts of stuff, but it's definitely up there. Maybe top 10. Maybe I'm comfortable putting it in the top 10 for PS2.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. But then we got to bring in the emotions to wrap up the Critical 5 for Persona 4. Number 5 on the Critical 5, this is Nevermore. Yeah, it's the ending theme, the credits theme. Lyrics of this song by Shigeo Komori. And yeah, you're only here in Inaba for 1 year. You need to return home, back to the city. But your friendships will remain forever. And boy, we've talked about ending songs in Persona games before. How 5's doesn't necessarily hit the mark. But, oh man, Nevermore is the best. Super emotional thinking about it. Like, I think it's probably the most recently I've, cried in a video game is, the end of Persona 4.
It's not the most recently for me, because I replayed To the Moon recently. But this is among my favorite credit songs in video games. The ending of this game, well, a little bit disarmed by future Persona 4 related titles being like, oh yeah, but you just get to come every few months. You just go visit Inaba. So
yeah,
tearful goodbye means nothing. But without that context, and even with that context, the ending of Persona 4 is genuinely very emotional and genuinely very heartfelt. And by the time you finish the game, it actually feels like I just spent so much time with these people and now we got to say goodbye. Cause it's not just oh, Yu Narukami is leaving Inaba. It's the game is ending. I'm not spending any more time with these characters.
Yeah. You're putting down the game for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah. And it's very, very melancholy. And I really, really love this song. It's super good.
So, Joe, if you had a Critical 5 all ready to go for this one, surely you must have had also tracks on the cutting room floor. What'd you have?
Boy, did I. My first one, and these aren't even all of the songs that I wanted to put on the cutting room floor, but I only get 2. My first one is Studio Backlot. Of course, this song is better known nowadays by its Japanese title, Backside of the TV, which is what I personally know it as. This is the music for the sort of hub area in the TV world when you first go back there, the little studio that leads into all of the dungeons. Lyrics by Reiko Tanaka. And I think this is one of the best level hub songs to ever be in a video game. It just feels... it's so sinister and kind of overbearing, and you get more of Hirata rapping, and it's just so good. And also in Dancing All Night, Lotus Juice did a remix, and it's awesome. So, shout outs to that.
It so is. It's so good. Yeah, it definitely gets you amped up for sure. And I was trying to explain it to my girlfriend who was watching me play Persona 5, and I'm like this is like if you entered the metaverse and like instead of the terrible like mementos, like you were met with this on like the ground level there.
That's what they should have added to the costume in 5.
Oh, yeah.
I would have gone to Mementos more often, actually. No, I wouldn't have. Mementos is really boring in the original game. And my second track on the cutting room floor is Snowflakes.
But in our memories it stays. This is where we say farewell, and the wind it feels a little colder now.
This is a song that is exclusive to Golden. It is the theme for January and February in Inaba when it is winter and it is snowing. The lyrics were done by Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, you boy.
Yeah. And I really like this song because not only is it just a nice vocal song that feels wintry, I guess, but it also has this melancholy feeling because it is reminding you that yeah, no, you're getting there. Game's almost over.
This is where we say farewell. Like,
yeah,
ooh.
like it's basically telling you like you're coming up on your time. You're gonna have to say goodbye sooner or later.
Yeah, so shouts out to our boy Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
Coming back from Persona 5, we get to mention Ben Franklin again. He also did the lyrics to Time to Make History. Important to mention that as well. So yeah, it must have been like starting with Golden thing. Must have worked at Atlas USA. For the songs on Golden soundtrack specifically, like it's Time to Make History. Shadow World may be in there, but it's Snowflakes. Like, if not two, like it's 2A, 2B. Like it's those three. Like those are the big standouts. You get Rise's song, True Story. It's an anime thing, like fine, but Snowflakes, I agree. Totally really good to be here. My two that I had to, whittle down and choose for my cutting room floor. My first one is Heartbeat, Heartbreak.
Still I can't, oh baby, I need your love. Looking so different, gliding street light. Heartbeat, tick, keeps on pounding. Heartbreak, you take me goodbye. Heartbeat.
This is the theme where you're in Inaba and it's cloudy. It's not foggy, it's not sunny, but it's a normal cloudy day. I get big nostalgia vibes with this song, imagining just running down that main street of Inaba. Heartbeat, heartbeat, it keeps on pounding. Heartbreak, heartbreak, you tell me goodbye. Like it's another really good reincarnation song, by the way. We're going to keep mentioning that. Like if you like this music, you got to check out what Meguro did on that album. But yeah, really like this one.
I also really like this song. Your Affection is pretty good, but it just hits Heartbeat, Heartbreak hits way differently and gives me that sort of nostalgia more so than Your Affection ever could. Not to say that I dislike Your Affection. Granted, I think this game also makes really good use of when it is raining, there's no music.
Yeah, and
it's gone.
And Your Affection being the sunshine theme.
Mm-hmm.
My other song kind of goes on the other end of things. This is The Fog. Sometimes it gets translated as Mist, but this is the phase 1 of the final boss theme. And I would say it's the best boss theme in the game, with more of that great Meguro guitar. I think it's so good, in fact, that they just had to use it as Yu's finishing blow theme in Persona 4 Arena. I adore this song, and I wish it played more often.
I like this song, but in comparison to the last game's final boss themes, which is not a fair comparison, just it doesn't hold up quite as well as either of them. It's good, but I mean, I'll take Battle Hymn of the Soul any day.
Oh yeah, without question. That's without a doubt. Yeah, it's really, really good stuff. You can't go wrong with Meguro. You can't go wrong with this soundtrack. But what will I never forget about this game? It's honestly the characters. I think my favorite cast in any game, period, more than just Persona. These characters aren't perfect. They're flawed. They need to accept their shadow selves. But that's what makes them so memorable and so interesting, and all their weird little quirks. Like Yukiko breaking down laughing at dumb jokes. Like it just wins you over. If you want my ranking of best girl, Rise, followed closely by Naoto. And it's pretty close from there on out.
You're gonna have to cut to my video feed for the video people so they can see what I'm doing. Shaking my head because the actual ranking is Yukiko, and then Rise, and then Naoto, and then 5 other characters that don't exist, and then Chie. For me, it's also the characters. One that really sticks out in my mind, I think. 2, I guess. I love Kanji. I think Kanji is possibly one of the best written characters in JRPG history. But also, I think this game was my first experience with a child character that I didn't want to kill. And in fact, really, really liked.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Because Nanako is actually, she's a character that manages to somehow thread the line between she feels realistic as a child, she acts like a child, she sounds and talks like a real child, but she's not annoying. I don't want to toss her off a cliff 5 hours in because she won't shut up, which is a problem that even today, a lot of video games have a lot of issues with that. We've gotten great examples since then, like Clementine, you've got Atreus, you've got probably a couple others that aren't popping to mind right away, but we've gotten a little bit better at it. But even today, just we're not very good at writing children that people want to like, and so that builds into something later on in the story that really amplifies how that part makes you feel. And also, just the soundtrack of this game is so good. Songs that we had to end up leaving out, like Heaven. I really, really like Heaven. I really like some of the dungeon songs, though some of them get a little bit repetitive. And also, I think that this game has the worst dungeons in the series by far.
But theater is so good.
I hate the dungeons in Persona 4. I think they are... In 3, Tartarus is inoffensive, not super memorable, but inoffensive. And then in 5, they're like, they designed dungeons instead of just randomizing floors. And 4, I despise the dungeons in 4. But overall, yeah, I think it comes down to the characters and it comes down to the music. And the setting of Inaba is just being a small town gave them the ability to give more personality to Inaba than any other setting in Persona, I think.
Yeah, what's that Brooklyn Nine-Nine meme in relation to Nanako? If anything happens to her, I'll kill everyone in this room and myself.
I've only known her for 3 hours, but if anything happened to her, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
Yeah, like it's exactly that. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow. Nanako. Good pull, good call. So to transition to our next game, let's talk about a fan cover from OC Remix, YouTube, what have you. You found a nice cover from Jehezkiel's CR. Only has a few thousand views on YouTube, but it's a really nice acoustic guitar only cover of Nevermore. Just wanted to give it some more love. It's really nice. I enjoyed it. Hope you do too. We'll be right back.
All right, kids. Time to go to prom. Specifically Monster Prom. It probably would be a better experience than my actual prom, but that is a story for another day. Because we're talking about the game, Monster Prom, as you might have guessed. So Monster Prom was originally released for the PC on April 27th, 2018, and a Nintendo Switch release is happening this Thursday on May 21st, 2020, which happens to be why we're talking about it this week.
Hey.
So, Monster Prom was developed by Beautiful Glitch, which is a development studio based out of Barcelona, Spain, which I think is a new country for us, once again.
I think so, and I'm kind of glad they didn't say Barcelona.
Barcelona. And it was published by Those Awesome Guys. What a name for a company. Good name. Monster Prom is a competitive multiplayer dating sim for up to 4 players. And if those words in that combination don't really make sense to you, allow me to explain, because perfectly reasonable. In Monster Prom, you take control of students at Spooky High, which is a high school full of monsters. You are able to pick one of 4 avatars, being the Fear Spirit Oz, the Zombie Brian, the Frankenstein's monster Vicky, or the Fiery Djinn Amira. These names aren't permanent because you can give them your own name, and you can even choose which pronouns you prefer, which is really small, nice touch. It goes a long way. So Spooky High itself, it's a very strange place. Also kind of a really dangerous place. And honestly, probably not a place the humans want to end up. All of the students are monsters, and they're also all too old to actually be in high school, which gets over the whole thing of games where you go date high schoolers is weird when you're playing them as not a high schooler. They all range from, I think 19 is the youngest any of them are, and then some of them are older than time itself. It's a cutthroat environment full of terrible schemers and dastardly plots, where only the strongest and honestly most evil scheming survive. But honestly, who cares about any of that? Because what's really important is that the most important event of the year, the most important event of your life is in just 3 weeks, and that's the Monster Prom. One problem. You don't have a date. And honestly, what you really want to do is you want your prom date to be one of the most popular people in school. So, That brings us to the main love interests, of which there are 8.
Just like the investigation team. Hey.
Hey! There we go. That's another theme. The number 8. There is Vera Oberlin, a 23-year-old Gorgon with a sharp and cold business sense, whose only interest is really to get rich, look fabulous, and get fame. There is Damien LaVey, a 21-year-old demon with a love for burning things, a fiery temper, and the literal keys to hell, because his dads are the owners of hell. You have Polly Geist, a technically 22-year-old ghostly nymphomaniac who absolutely hates being bored and loves being hot. Liam de Liancourt, a 400-something-year-old hipster vampire with a love of all things pretentious. You have Miranda Vanderbilt, a 19-year-old mermaid princess with a highly sheltered worldview and some interesting thoughts about the people and races her royal family subjugates. You have Scott Howell, an adorably innocent 21-year-old werewolf jock who loves sports and his friends. Honestly, a boy too pure for this world in multiple ways. You have Zoe, who is an ageless eldritch horror who was sick of being an unknowable old god and decided to instead be a fanfiction writing, anime loving weeaboo. And last but not least, you have Calculester Hewlett-Packard, a library computer who gained sentience and is brimming with curiosity about the world around them. The first 6 love interests on that list were available in the launch version of the game. Zoe and Calculester were actually added as part of the second term DLC, and there are also various secret romance options that you can end up with at the end of the game, but you'll have to find those out for yourself. All characters can be romanced regardless of gender. In terms of gameplay, it plays like your average dating sim. If you have never played a dating sim, it is basically choose to go to this place. You can give people gifts. You interact with them and have scenes. So in this way, every day each player takes turns picking where they spend the day. And depending on where they pick, it will raise 1 stat, those stats being smarts, boldness, creativity, charm, fun, or money. After this stat growth, a scene will begin to play out with various characters, and all of the stories and everything that happen over a session are completely randomized every time. Potentially, your target prom date may show up in this scene, and usually, if the game realizes, oh, that's who you're going after, they'll usually throw that character in a scene with you. And eventually you'll be given a choice that, depending on your answer, will decide whose affections that you're gathering, and sometimes may lower or raise your stats even further. And the goal is simple. You gotta build your stats and your friendship with your target lover, and in 3 weeks, ask them to prom. But whether or not they say yes, it's a different matter entirely. And this is where I will ask, Peter, what are your experiences with Monster Prom?
Played it a few times with you, and it's certainly a fun game to play with others on Discord while you're having a voice chat. It's a super good time. I also played it once by myself, and then it wasn't as good of an experience. It was fine, just nowhere near as memorable. I like Polly, but I think I've ended up with Calculester before.
I think when we played, you did end up with Calculester, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And then I tried, I think, going after Liam once, and he said no. And then Zoe's also cute. So a lot of good characters. It's a fun time.
I agree that I've never played it by myself. I can't imagine that would be all that fun an experience. I think a lot of the fun of playing Monster Prom specifically comes from getting a group of people together, doing voices. This is very important. You got to read all of the dialogue and you got to give the characters your own voices. I think that is a big boost to it being fun. Turning it into a bit of a performative game absolutely makes that game even more fun than it already is. It is probably among my favorite multiplayer games ever, I think. And I don't play a lot of multiplayer games. They exhaust me. It's very tiring to play games with other people. I enjoy doing it, but I don't have the energy to do it very often. Monster Prom is one of those that like a single game will take you at least 3 to 4 hours. So it's a time commitment. But I have a blast every time we play it. I'm a Miranda man myself. I genuinely do not know why. She's a horrible, horrible person. I have yet to get her to say yes. I think I dated Scott once, which he's a pure boy. I'm fine with that. But I think that's it. I might have dated Calculester at one point as well. It's a fun game to get a group of people together, just have a good time. Sometimes the game gives you the opportunity to screw over one of the other players, and the instant that happens and the other 3 are like trying to like, 2 of them are like, oh yeah, just do it. Throw them under the bus, and the one that it's giving you the option to screw over is like, don't screw me on this, man. Don't screw me on this, man. It's fun. So I tried to look into developer interviews for this game, but sadly, there do not seem to be a lot of them. There does not seem to be a lot of behind-the-scenes information about the development of Monster Prom, so I will just give you what I was able to find. Unfortunately, maybe one of these days I'll like go to a PAX or something, if PAX ever happens again, and talk to the developers if I can ever get in with them. So Beautiful Glitch is made up of 4 individuals mainly, being, and I brought this upon myself, but I'm going to butcher all of these pronunciations. I'm so sorry. Julian Huijano, who is the producer and designer. Elias Pereira, who is the programmer. Arthur Tien, who does art. And Corey O'Brien, who does narrative development. Their previous game was a small title called Maze Man that was originally supposed to release on Steam and mobile phones in 2017, but as far as I can tell, that game never came out. There is still a Steam Greenlight page for it, back when that was a thing, but you can't find it anywhere anymore. So if it did come out, you can't get it anywhere. If it was canceled, undeterred, Beautiful Glitch decided to try again, this time kickstarting their project. They decided they were going to ask for 8,000 euros to complete the game Monster Prom, and by the time the Kickstarter campaign ended, they had been successfully funded on November 25th, 2016, raising a total of 32,230 euros with the help of 1,592 backers. This is roughly equal to $34,378 in today's exchange rate. And the game's release date was announced on Valentine's Day 2018. Fitting. And the game saw a release in April the same year. The Second Term DLC, which was a stretch goal of the Kickstarter campaign, was released on Valentine's Day 2019. Again, fitting. And added Zoe and Calculester, as well as a bunch of new scenes and new secret romance options. Beautiful Glitch claims that the game in its current form has over 1,300 possible outcomes, which includes multiple secret endings per character, and even some secret romance options that may not be immediately obvious. And in fact, there can even be more now, because in the final big update to Monster Prom, a mod tool was added, meaning that users can now create their own characters and scenes and content for Monster Prom, making it even bigger and kind of just making the possibilities endless. So long as you're not making toxic, bad stuff or 18 plus stuff.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Yeah, they don't really want that. So, upon release, Monster Prom received mixed to average reviews, with a Metacritic that is currently sitting at 73. It was mainly praised for its writing and art. Makes sense. The character designs are all fantastic. The writing is hilarious. It's among the funniest games I've ever played.
73 seems a little low, though.
It does, but apparently some people, I think some of the reviews I read, including one that gave it a 5 out of 10, it sounds like this lady sat down and played it alone and then was like, this must be what the whole experience is.
Oh no.
And didn't play it with people, which again, like, I think the main draw and main personality of Monster Prom comes from playing it with a group of friends. It's like Jackbox. You're not going to go play Jackbox by yourself. It's not fun. So I think that's part of what it was, but also just the humor is not going to be everybody's bag. It's kind of vulgar at points. It's not afraid to throw a few swears in there, that kind of thing. So I don't know. I agree that it feels low, but It's also nominated for 2 awards at the 2019 South by Southwest Gaming Awards, being the Matthew Crump Cultural Innovation Award, which it lost to Celeste, and the Most Fulfilling Community-Funded Game Award, which it lost to a game called Crosscode that I am not familiar with. So there is also now currently a sequel in development. Sequels? It's a little bit confusing how they're doing it, but I think technically now it is sequels. So let me explain that. Beautiful Glitch launched another Kickstarter campaign on May 8th, 2019 for Monster Prom 2 Holiday Season, which, wow, it's been a year since that Kickstarter. Huh, that's just now setting in. It does not feel like it was that long ago.
Wow, time is meaningless.
It sure is. So Holiday Season originally was planned to be a collection of 3 smaller games in the Monster Prom world featuring characters from the original game, including another competitive dating sim called Monster Camp, a strategy game starring Miranda and Vera called Monster Retreat, and a more survival-focused game starring Scott and Polly called Monster Road Trip. The campaign asked for 32,230 euros, which you might note is the exact amount that was raised for the first game. And it shattered that goal by raising 535,251 euros, which in American dollars equals roughly $579,227, with the help of 8,928 backers, including me. It was the first Kickstarter project I've ever backed in my life. This campaign was not only wildly successful in that, it shattered every stretch goal that they had, and in the end, Monster Camp is now its own title, which is the one they are currently working on. I get updates in my email every once in a while about how far along they are. It sounds like it's coming along pretty well. Retreat and Road Trip are now going to be part of their own package, like cordoned off into a different package. And it also allowed them to add 2 more adventures to this lineup, being Monster Prom Not Another Isekai, which is a 4th adventure DLC starring Zoe and Liam, and another sequel called Monster Prom Reverse, which is another dating game that is focused on trying to date the original 4 player characters. So yeah, there's a lot of Monster Prom stuff coming, and I'm personally very, very excited for it. And of course, to celebrate the 2nd anniversary of Monster Prom's release, they confirmed that it was coming to Switch. This announcement happened on April 27th, 2020, the original release date of the game, and it is releasing this Thursday as Monster Prom XXL. If you are not convinced or I have done a bad job explaining the game, and you don't know if it's worth your money, you should go ahead and head over to twitch.tv/Nintendo World Report on Friday evening, where myself, our friend Matt, and 2 other undecided people, who knows who they will be. We actually, behind a little bit of inside baseball, we haven't actually brought this up to anybody yet, will be streaming the Switch release on our Twitch channel. So, let's get into the soundtrack. And this one's a bit of a weird one. I think this is our first time where the entire soundtrack is licensed music. That's odd. But that is the case. Pretty much all of the music in Monster Prom is taken from albums by the band Messer Chups. So let's talk about Messer Chups real quick. They are an experimental band based out of St. Petersburg, Russia, which is another new country on our list of destinations. The band was founded in 1999 by Oleg Gitarkin. And Messer Chups is often considered a spin-off band of his previous group, Messer für Frau Müller.
Messer für Frau Müller, knife for Frau, or Mrs. Müller.
Yeah, I'll speak German. Why is it in German? This is a Russian band. I'm just now realizing this. Their music has a very odd B-movie, surf rock, goth aesthetic. I don't know how else to describe it. And if you've noticed that one of those things is not like the other, you're right. Because surf rock does not sound like it belongs in that combination of genres. They incorporate samples of things like jazz, East European animation soundtracks, and American B-movie clips in their music, as well as synths, guitars, and the theremin played on top of that. Which, the theremin, there we go. That's a name we don't hear very often in video games. We should. They're dumb. I love them. But while the band has shuffled between multiple members since its creation in 1999, it is currently made up of Guitarkin on guitar, which I find hilarious, a bassist named Zombie Girl, a drummer named Alexander Belkuk, and a vocalist named, Alexander Sfortsov. Sorry, I don't speak Russian and I don't know how to pronounce Russian stuff. Their last album, Mondo Harp, was released in 2019, so they are still doing stuff today. As for their discography, they have released 21 albums since 1999, but Monster Prom appears to be the only one that has licensed their music for use in a commercial product. And for historical development research, I mean, there's not really much to be said. All the music is licensed, so it should be said that the soundtrack of Monster Prom is made up of tracks from 3 Messer Chups albums, being The Incredible Crocodile, Church of Reverb, and Bermuda 66. So let's get into what this goth, surf rock music sounds like. And the best place to start is with critical track number 1, Crocodile. This song is, unsurprisingly, off the album The Incredible Crocodile. It is essentially the main theme of the game, I think. It's the one that plays on the title screen. It's the first one you hear when you load up the game. And this is about what you should expect from the music in this game. This surf rock with a weird goth twist to it. It's honestly a very catchy and recognizable tune, and I found myself whistling it all week.
Yeah, it's really unique, especially when you boot up the game and you're hearing this. Surf rock is a really great way to describe what this is. I wouldn't have guessed it comes from Russia.
Yeah, me neither, actually.
Because it's like 60s Beach Boys almost inspired, I think. Like, I just don't think of it as like modern. But yeah, they have a sound to them. And we'll see if that's for better or for worse. But yeah, this is definitely fully recognizable for this game, and it's like the main track to put here.
Mm-hmm. But I also have a soft spot for our critical track number 2, Back to Bermuda Triangle. This is from their album Bermuda 66, and overall it's a good song in its own right, but I think the most unique part of this song, which you hear at the very end of the clip here, is that it uses a Scream sample, in a really fun way, which makes it always stick out to me when this song comes on when you play it. It should be noted that these songs do not play at specific points in the game. The way Monster Prom does its music is that it's a playlist of this music. And it just plays, it shuffles the playlist and goes. And just plays in the background while you are doing all of your stuff. Nothing is really matched up to anything except for like the credits song and the song that plays on the title screen. That's about it.
Kind of lose the effect there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it with Valhalla before, where it's like, it could have been much more effective if it was queued up, but, you know, it's for better or for worse. Yeah, the scream sound effect that really cuts through, and I don't like it. I'm not a fan. I'm like, I gotta fade that one out quick.
I've had to warm up to it. I also at first was like, this is a little bit overbearing, but I think it's just, it's unique. And also I guess it fits Monster Prom. This song is why I was very surprised that these are all licensed tracks. Cause this song feels like it was written for Monster Prom.
Yeah, but it has a good peppy energy to it. Definitely faster than Crocodile.
Mm-hmm. And after that, we have Moon Race. This is from the album The Incredible Crocodile. This is my personal favorite on the list. I really, really love the energy of this song. It feels really good to listen to, and honestly, the jazzy bits are perfectly integrated, and it's crazy to think that they're just samples, I guess. But I think they really, really add something really fun to this song, and this is a very fun song to listen to.
This is also my favorite. It kind of brings me back to old like swing jazz kind of a little bit. More definitely on that heavy lower string guitar as is common here. But I agree, like you hear this one, it's like, oh, get your toe tapping. Oh yeah.
Swing jazz is a good way to put it. That might explain why I like it so much, because I'm a big fan of that genre.
It's the da 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 da.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good way to put it. After that, we have critical track number 4, Padre Pizzicato. This is from the album Church of Reverb, and I think that this one is the definition of what I mean when I say goth surf rock, because it's like surf rock but in a minor key, and that's really weird. I can almost picture like Dracula surfing on the beach while this song plays, if not for the fact that if Dracula was on a beach, he would die. But this song just feels kind of evil, while also just keeping the same sort of energy and feel of the other songs in the game, which I think fits Monster Prom perfectly.
And it keeps up the same kind of pacing and theming. It's a lot of the same instruments, but I kind of like the sound of that Barry sax there.
Oh, 100%. Just the da-da-da-da. It's super good. And again, that's just a sample. That's crazy.
Wow.
And then, of course, we got to step away from Messer Chups for just a couple minutes, because critical track number 5 is 15 minutes.
What if I told you that the world was gonna end? I make you have 15 minutes to spend with me or your friend. Would you take the first bus over to my house, or would you take the last plane over the West Coast? Scenic shots like these with the stranger. heart. It was over and done before we had a start. It goes on in my head, and I wanna get singing.
This is the only song in the game not by Messer Chups, and instead this song is by Mike Kroll off of his album I Hate Jazz, which, funny, considering there's a lot of jazzy stuff in this game. This is the credits theme as it goes over various Polaroids of memories from your class's time at Spooky High, not necessarily from your game, but like just pictures of people doing stuff while at Spooky High. I am not the biggest fan of this song personally. I think it's the overly gated drums that do it for me. It's not a great ear experience, I feel like. But it's still notable, and I still think it should be here. And apparently this song also shows up in an episode of Steven Universe titled Last One Out of Beach City, which I kept seeing people mention on like Steam boards and stuff, so that's cool.
Yeah, something like a vocal fan base to make themselves known. Yeah, for me, it's the overmodulated vocals. That's tough.
That's also a problem that I have, yeah.
So it is what it is, and it's a wrap-up song. That's fine. But it definitely mixes up the sound.
This is obviously for somebody, just might not be for either of us.
Yeah, just like if you're right next to a speaker at a rock concert and everything is just loud noises.
Mm-hmm. So, for tracks on the cutting room floor, Peter, you got a couple? Hit me with them.
I think I have a couple because like there's not much left on this this playlist soundtrack.
These two basically cover the rest of it.
So I felt like I just had to, and it's they're good songs. Don't get me wrong. So the first one is "Son of Chupacabra." Son of Chupacabra. It comes from the album The Incredible Croco Tiger. The song really just it plays it straight with more of the low guitar and the eighth notes just establishing its rhythm, its leitmotif, and gets a good groove to it. But this is also where if you've been hearing a lot of these songs, it's like, sounds similar to a lot of the other songs that have been on this list.
My only issue with this soundtrack is they all sort of just start to blend together after a little while.
Yes.
And the fact that it's just playing a playlist doesn't help. I like the music in this game, but that is definitely a flaw of the soundtrack of just like, it all just sort of starts to blend together after a bit.
Yeah, it does sound a little one note, and I had no idea about the whole playlist thing, because it almost just sounds like it's the same song and they're just taking different riffs on it, honestly. So it's a good sound, but when the instrumentation is the same and they're trying to hit on the same point, it makes me wonder if their albums are any other different. But they sampled, 3 out of 20 plus. So, The other one is War Party. Also from the album, The Incredible Croco Tiger. Yeah, buddy, use that whammy bar.
I like the drums in this song. I think the drum part, like the heavy drums, is a really nice touch as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to flesh out what seemingly was almost the entire soundtrack. But yeah, those good ones.
Yeah, hey, it's a good reason to grab them. For me, I have Cemetery Beach. This one is off the album Church of Reverb, and it's just, more minor key, goth, surf rock, but it's got these church bell samples, which I think are really funny and really interesting at the very beginning. You could just hear like the dong, dong, which again, not really what I would expect, but hey. But yeah, it's got the same issue of like, it just all blends together. But then, you have Human Jungle. This is also off of the album Church of Reverb. Honestly, there's not much I can say about the song outside of I dig its tone. I like the tone of this song a lot.
A little slower, but has some more prominent bass line going. That's pretty cool.
It's a good song. So what will I never forget about Monster Prom? Like I said, it is probably among my favorite multiplayer games of all time. I absolutely adore playing this game. I think it has the same energy as playing Jackbox, except much longer. Because you can finish a Jackbox game in what, 20 minutes? It's 3-4 hours for a single game of Monster Prom. You can do a shorter game, which will probably take you about an hour and a half, 2 hours. But it's such a fun game. And again, for best results, get together a group of 3 friends who enjoy performative stuff. And everybody decides who's voicing what characters and just voice them the best you can, whether it's with goofy voices or if you're like me and you really think that Miranda should be voiced by Hynden Walsh, it just makes sense in your head. And I love voicing Miranda and ranting about those damn air people because it's just so fun to voice these characters. And I think that's a big part of it, is the performative aspect to it. And so if you end up picking up this game, whether it be on PC or on Switch, that is the environment I recommend you play it in.
Absolutely. I do hope people have a great time with it. It's fun characters, fun time with friends. The soundtrack, it's a sound that we haven't heard on the show before. And I think it's super unique, but you're right. I think it does become a little one note after a while. So I feel like between that soundtrack and Persona 4's soundtrack, it's a good one for episode 69. Get those school-themed games in there. It's all nice, and get those 8 people groups in there with dating and stuff. I don't know. It all makes sense, right? Right? I think so. Anyway, that will do it for us this week on Original Soundchat. You can find me on Twitter at PeteSpeakEasy. Joe is over at the Dobaga. The video version of the show is on the Rhymes with Asia YouTube channel, also at rhymeswithasia.com. But it's that MP3 podcast version of the show that you want on Anonymous Dinosaur at anondino.squarespace.com, where you can also find Joe's other show, Smasterpieces. You can visit the show on our different social media channels at Soundchat OST for leaving feedback for how we're doing, also suggestions for games that we should cover. The MP3 podcast, though, it's really the best place to listen to. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify for also the podcast feed. But not only can you listen there and take it different places with you, even in these COVID-19 times, but you can also have a Spotify playlist of video game music along with you. See, Joe curates this big Spotify playlist that if we talk about a song from a game on the show and it's on Spotify, it's getting added to the playlist. Is anything getting added this week, Joe?
So once again, I've said it before, the Persona soundtracks are on Spotify, but they are all region locked to Japan, which I pray every day that Atlas tweets out like, they're here! And it'll be the best day of my life. But sadly, this has not happened. But Monster Prom, all of the Messer Chups albums that are involved in Monster Prom, as well as 15 Minutes, are on Spotify, so I will be adding those to the playlist.
Excellent, excellent. Joe, congrats on making it to the finish line and graduating. Yay!
Finally.
The big hurdles are behind you, and hopefully that gives us more time to contribute to some more bonus tracks for original Soundchat.
Yeah, we got some top 10 lists for years just about ready to go. Just need to grab some like honorable mentions and record it. I'm working on trying to set up some interviews. It's a lot of cool stuff, maybe in the future. Hopefully. We'll see.
Hope so. Hopefully with school getting out of the way, that should help. Joe, who are you talking about next week?
I will be talking about Christina V.
I will be talking about Tomori Kudo. Ooh, it's got some good games lined up. All right, Joe, let's play us out.
It was actually kind of hard to find a cover for this game. And then I realized that the reason it was kind of hard to find a cover for this game is because I was searching Monster Prom cover when I should have been searching Messer Chups cover because it's a band. And you actually managed to find a really good cover of Padre Pizzicato by the Mexican band and YouTube channel Las Huma Guma. And it's a fun listen, so please enjoy that.
Yeah, it's all women in this band. Fun music video. Great song. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for listening this week on Original Soundchat. We'll see you next time. Take care.